Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to Skookum Living. Today you're joining me in Belize. I'm down here for about 10 days on a dive trip, and whenever I'm in a tropical location I always like to make myself my own personal headgear. And so what we're going to be doing is converting or turning this coconut palm into a hat. And so the first step is going to be to peel this down the middle. And so you don't need any tools for this part, you just go to the very end of it, peel the last two pieces apart, and then this can just peel all the way down the whole frond. And so you just go like this and split the whole thing. Now we're going to try and look for the biggest section of this. We'll hold these two up with each other. See which one's bigger. I got a big noggin, so I want this to be a nice big hat. And so what we're going to do is, where's the biggest section? Looks like it starts about right here. A great way to measure how big of a frond you need is just to peel off one little piece, find out where you want it to sit on your head, take off your other hat, bring this around, and find these two pieces. And then I'm just gonna rip off the end so I don't forget. So that's about how big my band wants to be. And I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger than this, and you'll see why in a little bit. So I take my length piece and I'm going to find out where the first little spline is on the hat and make my way down. And so this is perfect. So this goes to right about this spine right here. And so I'm going to cut it about 2 spines down from the one that I just measured. And once again, I want to get the biggest pieces, so it looks like down here is the bigger pieces. So I'm going to start to here. So these last 2 I can trim off. Alright. And save those 2 pieces. I'm going to make another video of a little arts and crafts project you can do with the extras. But this is going to be the blank of our hat. This is beautiful. So the fresher the palm frond you can get, the better. It's much more flexible. Once it's been cut and sits for a while, these things don't like to bend. But I just cut this one last night, and so these are still very flexible, which is what we really want. At this point, you're going to need a good sharp knife. Be careful with this part, because cutting across the grain is very difficult. But once you get in line with the grain, it goes real quick. And so you have the ability to slip with your knife. And so always cut away from yourself because you don't want to cut yourself. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to try and remove as much of this bit of the central spine as possible, because this is what's going to be the band of your head. And so this is what you want to be very soft and supple so you can bend it around your head. It makes it much more comfortable that way. So like I was saying, I like to start with it on the ground like this. And we're just going to go and take little slices out. Starting at the small end and working your way towards the big end, you can follow the grain real easy and it doesn't dive towards the leaves. And so we're just going to make our way towards the center, cutting off a little bit more each time we go, because we really don't want to cut off any of these leaves. Once you have that center spine trimmed down so it's very flexible and you can bend it around your head, you're going to make it into a loop, and that's what's going to be your starting point for the weaving process. So I like to use some fishing line for this and just use it to tie the two ends into a loop. It's real cheap and it's clear, so once you start weaving you can't see it. As far as lining it up, you want to line up the first leaf with the piece that you had cut off, or the two pieces that I cut off on this particular hat, and that way you have a nice smooth area to start your weaving process. Once you have the band tied up, you want to make sure that you try it on. It wants to be a little big, and as you can see, it fits with my regular hat on. So once the palm fronds are folded underneath, it should fit quite nicely. Alright, now it's time to start weaving. I like to start just on the side of the junction where you just tied them together with fishing line. That way your first weave actually holds the two bits of band together better. And so you start by going over two fronds, under one frond, then over one more, and then tucking into the middle. And so you follow that all the way around. So with this first one, I go over two, under one, over one, and then tuck through the middle. And so I'm going to do that all the way around the hat. And so now I grab the second one, go over two, under one, over one, and then tuck in the middle. And so now I'm going to follow that pattern all the way around the brim until they're all tucked up through the middle. Once you make it most of the way around, you're going to get to the point where you're back to the beginning. And so you're going to follow the same pattern, you're just going to join the weaving into the part that you've already done. And so it still goes over two, under one, over one, and then through the middle. You're just going to have to work your way through the ones that are already woven farther into the hat. Alright, so once you have your first loop done, it'll hold itself in place and you can tuck those pieces that were shoved through back out the bottom. And now you're going to want to go around the entire brim and organize all your fronds to be facing the same direction so they have the little spines all lined up the same way, and basically just organize it like you're tying a knot. You want to keep everything nice and smooth, and then you're going to one by one work your way around the hat and tighten it down until there's not quite such big spaces and it's a uniform brim all the way around. And just like that, the brim of our hat is done. The next step is to start weaving the crown. That's the part that comes from the band vertically and covers most of your head. So I start by pulling 4 leaves from the bottom that are all in a row, and I will do the same weave pattern that I did below, but I will fold over the first piece, and that goes over 2 leaves, under 1 leaf, and then over 1 leaf. But unlike the brim, I'm going to tuck the last piece into the outer bit of the brim. And what that does is I holds my space and makes it so the entire weave process doesn't collapse as I move my way around the brim. This part is pretty tedious, and you want to make sure that you're very conscious of which your next leaf that you pull through is, because it's very easy to get them confused. And so you want to make sure you pull the next one in order, and that makes sure that your hat is nice and smooth and even all the way around. And so as you can see, I'm going to tuck the second one as well, just to give it a little more structure as I work my way around the crown. And so same process as before, I pull up 1 new leaf, fold over 2, I go under 1, over 1, and then I'm going to grab the next leaf and do the same process, over 2, under 1, and then pull up the next one, which will be the one that goes over. From this angle, you can get a little better idea of how the weaving process goes. I pull out a new leaf, I go over two, I go under one, and then I pull up the next leaf that will be my over one. Once you make it back to where you started weaving the crown is where it gets a little tricky, because they tend to fold over and get confused with each other. And so make sure that you're going over and under the proper ones to make sure that you have a nice smooth weave that goes all the way around the crown. I've messed this up more times than I can count, and so just at this point, take your time, go slow to ensure that you get a smooth weave around the entire crown. Once you've gone all the way around the crown of the hat and you have it holding itself in place, I like to add one more stitch on each one of the leaves. And so you can see right now I'm going through and adding one more stitch. And this just adds a little more structure to the crown and gives you a little more protection on the upper part of your hat. And so I'm just going to continue going around one by one and adding one more stitch to this weave, and gives it a little more volume to the crown. Now, just like for the brim, we're going to go around and organize and tighten each one of the leaves going around the entire crown, just to tighten it up and make it look nice and smooth. So the last step of these hats is to trim off the excess leaf ends and then weave them down into the brim itself. What that does is attach the crown down into the brim, gives it a little more strength to the hat, and covers the band that is not quite as pretty as the beautiful weaving that you have just done to make this hat. And so I make my way around each one of the leaves, trimming off the ends, tucking it into place. Well, thanks for joining me today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, maybe give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I can see you in the next episode. I'm going to go enjoy the sun in my new hat and the rest of my vacation. See you next time.